Hey guys, I just bought a Subaru and I was just wondering what mods I should do. Any advice? That's an easy one. Just sell it and start again. Actually, no, I'm kidding. We all love a good Subaru, and yeah, one of the first things people tend to lean towards is the air intake. Wanting to put in a cold air intake or a pod filter. But there's a few issues with this. One of the issues you tend to run into first off is deciding whether you want one that's inside the guard or inside the engine bay. And from personal experience, the ones in the guard tend to work better because they're away from all the heat inside the engine bay. But if you do want to run one inside the engine bay, such as like with the GC8s and that, it's always best to run some sort of box around the air filter so it doesn't overheat or suck in the engine air. Another issue with the in-guard cold air intakes is they tend to interfere with different front mounts. So there tends to either be one or two holes in the side of your engine bay where the air intakes sit. But when you use certain front mount intercooler kits, they tend to go through the hole that the cold air intake wants to go through. So obviously you're going to run into issues there. But sometimes, even if you're smart and buy the same brand intercooler and cold air intake, namely Process West and Process West, you can still run into dramas, which myself and some friends have noticed, which is the cold air intake still, even though the front mount intercooler is routed differently so it doesn't go through the cold air intake hole, the cold air intake pipe still fouls on the intercooler piping, which, again, if you're spending $500 on a cold air intake and then $1,000+ on an intercooler kit, you really don't want them rubbing because you're just watching your money get damaged. Another thing you need to be careful with is the MAF diameter of the cold air intakes. If it changes, you need to get it tuned. There's no question about it. And one of the big ones is with the GDs. You can get a big MAF cold air intake, which looks pretty much identical to the standard size, which the big one is 72mm, and I believe the standard one's 68. I'm not 100% sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so you need to be careful because if you do put that big MAF housing one in, you will need to get it tuned because, again, I think I've mentioned in a few videos prior, the fact that it's going to throw all the definitions out and it's not going to know exactly how much air it's getting sucked in. And the other big thing, whilst we're talking about the inlet and cold air intakes, is people putting oiled filters in their Subarus. So I'm talking the K&N oiled filters and other brands such like that. You really don't want to do it. You do have people who say you can just wipe off the excess oil and it'll be fine, but any oil that's going to get sucked through the intake onto your MAF is going to cause damage to your MAF. And as we all know, Subarus are notorious for killing MAFs. And yeah, why would you want to possibly make it worse by doing that? Another option is if you're chasing just a little bit more noise and not too worried about trying to look cool, you can remove the expansion chamber from inside the guard, which is just a bit of a sound deadener that Subaru put in from stock. So that's just a matter of pulling it out. It still keeps the intake for the airbox nice and high, so it's not going to be sucking in water. One of the issues I forgot to mention about the in-guard cold air intakes is the fact that you need to have your inner guard or your mud guard or whatever you want to call it, the piece of plastic that's inside the guard. Because if you haven't got that and you go driving in the wet, can you guess what's going to happen? Because I know and I've seen it, and it sucks up water and it destroys the air filter, and if you go through big enough of a puddle, you're going to suck water all through your motor. So, big no-no. Join us on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. for our 3P Garage Live over on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, where, yeah, we talk cars and hang out with friends. And make sure if you've enjoyed this video, just Give me a like, comment, and subscribe if you want. Share with your friends. Um, and yeah, thank you for joining me again. See you guys. With the GC8s, there was a positive and negative with the front mount kits and having a rudder pod filter. One, the positive was there was an intake directly above the pod filter, which when you're racing and pooning around is a great thing. But when it rains, yeah, direct water onto the pod, which is terrible.